What's the word? Happy Monday. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I know the Chicago Cubs and Chicago Cubs fans did not, as they were jettisoned from the playoffs by their rivals, the Milwaukee Brewers. We'll get into that. The Chicago Bulls took their first L of the preseason last night. We'll talk about that. And of course, we're going to touch on tonight's game between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders, plus touch on all Chicago sports teams right after the intro. Good morning, Chicago sports fans. Welcome to another episode of Chi-Town Sports Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago sports related. I got to get a Blackhawks plaque back there at some point. But it's your boy Big Kev holding it down for Chi-Town. And we're going to get right into the content. But first, make sure you hit us up at Chi-Town Sports Central at gmail.com or follow us on all your social medias. And you can follow me specifically at Big Kev from the Shy Big Kev from DACHI, wherever you like to receive your social media information, man. Listen, the Chicago Cubs, they had their opportunities. They had their opportunities to make it to the National League Championship Series, but they ended up falling 3-1 versus the Milwaukee Brewers. And frankly, the Brewers were just a better team. And even with that being said, the better team does not always win. The Chicago Cubs had their chances and they blew every single one in the two, and they just ended up losing the game. Frankly, the Chicago White Sox over there had the last laugh because Andrew Vaughn was a thorn in the Cubs' side pretty much since he got traded from the White Sox to Milwaukee. He helped jumpstart the Brewers like 15, 16 game winning streak that helped them chase down the Chicago Cubs and take over the number one spot in the Central Division, which played a role in why the Cubs lost this series because the Brewers had home field advantage. The home team won every game in this past series, and that's thanks in part to Andrew Vaughn. And listen, the White Sox are definitely having a last laugh on that one. Now, I'm a fan of both teams. I'm a White Sox fan first, obviously, but I do root for the Cubs. And I don't find any pleasure in watching these guys lose in the playoffs because a win for the Cubs is a win for Chicago. But they got a lot of work to do this offseason. Ticket item number one is Kyle Tucker. He's facing free agency. They got him over here for a 1 year situation, and he looked all right. He looked all right for the Cubs for the most of the season. Now he did get injured, so that plays a role in how poorly he played down the stretch. But he was all right. He was all right for the Cubs. He did hit home runs. He did his RBIs. He was just it's just he just didn't do everything that the Cubs needed him to do in the postseason, and I believe part of it was because he was hurt. It was because he was hurt. So in playing hurt, it's tough to do in the major league in any sport, but especially in Major League Baseball, man, you need to be healthy, especially if you're trying to hit home runs. And he just wasn't able to do it. He's only 28, so he's going to get some big money. I think he played himself out of some millions the way he played down the stretch. So he's not going to get the 500 M's that he's looking for. Maybe he signs a Cody Bellinger type contract, like the Cubs gave Cody Bellinger a couple of seasons ago, 3 years, 30 million apiece with two opt-outs. Will opt outs after every season. So maybe that's what happens with him. He comes back to the Cubs on maybe a 3 year, 120 million, $110 million deal with opt out clauses. But I don't see him signing that major contract that he was looking for prior to the season, prior to coming over to the Chicago Cubs. But hey, when he was right, he was the perfect addition to the Chicago Cubs lineup because they were able to surround him with the PCAs and the Seiya Suzuki's and the Michael Bushes, and they were all able to benefit from how pitches pitched to Kyle Tucker. Unfortunately for the Cubs, though, they came up short, and part of the reason why they came up short was because of their lack of production with runners in scoring position. Throughout this, even in the regular season, they were bottom half, bottom third of the majors, about 22nd with 3.5 batters left on base per game. And the game 5 NLDS was no different for the Chicago Cubs. It was no different. For example, the Chicago Cubs um, were 11, but they only got 4 hits with runners in scoring position. That's 4 for 27 in the entire NLDS. And if you go 4 for 27 in a playoff series versus a team as good as the Brewers, you're going to lose. And just to put it in perspective, the Brewers were 11 for 36, and that helped them win. They helped them win. Now, another thing the Chicago Cubs are going to have to focus on, besides getting better hitters, people that can get hit situationally, because that I think it was the 6th inning in the NLDS Game 5 where Kyle Tucker was at bat. It was 2 runners on, nobody out, and he didn't get a hit. Seiya Suzuki had an opportunity, and that sequence bothers me the most. To Seiya Suzuki one, because he did hit a home run. He was the only reason the Cubs scored in the NLDS, but what bothered me the most about Seiya's at bat was because right after Tucker went down, he had a situation where the pitch that was right in the zone, he looked at it, didn't swing at it, and all they needed was a hit. It was 2-1 at the time. One runner would have at least scored. It's a 2-2 game, is a different situation. And then the very next pitch, after looking at a pitch right in the zone and not swinging at it, he swings at a fastball that was forehead high. And eventually, instead of hitting for contact, he hit for power. He tried to get a 3-run home run, and he flied out to left field. That's pretty much it. Ian Happ was the next batter, and I think he struck out as well, and that was it. Threat over. The Cubs had 2 runners on, nobody out. There was a chance for them to rally, and they just did not do well. They didn't get a hit, and that was pretty much the game. The very next inning, I believe, they hit a home run. The Brewers hit a home run to go at 3-1, and that was the end of the game for the Chicago Cubs. So Craig Counsell, Jed Hoyer, and these guys have a lot of work to do this offseason with surrounding Pete Crow Armstrong, Nico Horner. I don't think Ian Happ is going anywhere. Michael Bush, some of your power hitters with hitters that are going to hit, because you saw it all postseason, all NLDS with the Brewers. They had batters up and down the lineup that would just get on base, get on base, get on base. There was one dude, I can't think of his name right now, but he was averaging like 400, like 425, 440. That's the type of players you need to put on this team if you're expecting to do well. Another thing, bullpen. I mean, it was rough. It's tough when you got 5 games and you got people that got to come out the bullpen. But the Chicago Cubs relievers gave up 9 runs in 29 innings. Just not good. So it's a lot of work for the Chicago Cubs in the offseason, albeit a fun season overall, considering how the season started. But at the end of the day, the Chicago Cubs didn't have enough to make it to the NLCS or the World Series, which were their hopes to start the season. And Chicago White Sox have the last laugh with Andrew Vaughn deciding to be what the Chicago White Sox expected him to be when they drafted him number 3 overall in 2019. Good for him. Good for him. But y'all know what it is. If you guys want to hear anything else about the Chicago Cubs or the Chicago White Sox, head on over to Chicago Cubs Central. My boy Big Mike is holding it down. I'll pop in and out over there as well. And Chicago White Sox Central, where I've held it down for the whole season. It was an up and down season, but we will do better this offseason covering any news on the White Sox. Speaking of the White Sox, there's it's not much really going on besides paying attention to what Andrew Vaughn is doing in the post season. All right, moving right along. Before we get to Chicago Bears, we're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls. They lost last night, 127-121. But again, it was the fourth quarter was pretty much a bunch of scrubs out there. They didn't have any playmakers, and Catfish didn't do much. If you don't know who Catfish is, you got to head on to the Shot Bulls podcast to find out. But listen, the Bulls, they had their opportunities to win last night. It's just, again, they didn't have any playmakers out there. All the starters were on the bench. It was just a good game overall from your starters when they did play. Ayo, who's not a starter, has been showing me that, listen to me, Ayo Dosunmu had 22 points in 25 minutes last night, 2 assists and 3 rebounds. But Ayo was pretty much the missing piece for the Chicago Bulls last year, in the sense of they needed a player to come off the bench and put the ball in the basket, and they didn't really have it. They did have Trey Jones toward the end of the season before till he got hurt. Javon Carter was in and out of the lineup. He just wasn't that guy. But right now, Io, he can start. We already know that he can start on his team, but he's going to come off the bench and wreak havoc on opposing teams. Wreak havoc. Right now, he's getting to the basket at will, left and right, at will. And if he can shoot the three consistently enough where he forces hard closeouts and he can use that to his advantage to blow by defenders and get to the basket, it's going to be a fun season with the bench mob. That's going to be fun. We're going to have a bench mob again. Patrick Williams was solid again. And I told Hayes this over on Chicago Bulls Central that I would love to see a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde approach from him. He had 10 points, 5 assists, and 8 rebounds last night. And if he can give us every other game, every third game or so, where he puts up numbers like that, as opposed to consistently being 100% ass, I will take 1 out of 3 games, 1 out of 4 games of good Patrick Williams, as opposed to is he even going to show up at all? Is he going to show up at all? Another game, a good game from Josh Giddey. You're going to get these types of numbers from him all season: 14, 7, and 8 for him. And Matas Buzelis, he's going to be one of the leaders on this team, one of the go-to guys on this squad. He did have 19 points and 4 rebounds last night. But we got to talk about how poorly Nikola Vucevic played last night before we move on to the next team. He had every opportunity to have a monster. Now I know it's preseason. We didn't even know if he was going to play last night. He wasn't even listed in the lineup as a starter, right? But he ends up being a last second starter for the squad. And look at Nikola Vucevic's numbers last night: 24 minutes, 3 for 10 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3, 0 for 2 from free throw line, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and a turnover. 6 points. 6 points. That's not going to do it. Now, Zach Collins did come in and play well, 8 points off the bench, 4 for 4 from the field. And then we did see Jalen Smith go 3 for 3 from the field with 7 points off the bench. So you got 15 points and 3 rebounds from your backup centers last night. But Nikola Vucevic has to produce. Jalen Smith did all that in 7 minutes, by the way. But Nikola Vucevic he got to produce. And 0 for 4 from 3 is not going to cut it. All of those threes were wide open. Every single one of them. There wasn't a defender within 5 feet of him. And he missed every last one of them. And then you go 0 for 2 from the free throw line. And 3 baskets that he made, all of them were like bunnies that bounced around the rim like they were gimmies. And last night was just not a good night from Vucevic. Now, we know he's a consummate professional who's going to give you 18 and 10, 17 and 10, but we do need to see him be more consistent as the season goes on, because maybe he'll get traded at some point, or maybe the Chicago Bulls are going to rely on him to make a playoff push. Can't be too many games like last night from Nikola Vucevic, but I am impressed with Io. We did see Dalen Terry get ejected last night on some huff stuff with him and one of the guys over there on the other squad on Milwaukee. Got Torian Prince. They got into it, and the referee overreacted and ejected him. But hey, at least Dalen Terry didn't back down. But y'all already know what it is, man. If you want to hear anything else about the Chicago Bulls, head on over to Chicago Bulls Central. And we'll get to the Bears in a second. Blackhawks are in action tonight versus the no longer the Utah Hockey Club, the Utah Mammoth. The Utah Mammoth, they are 1-1. The Chicago Blackhawks are 0-2-1, looking to get into the win column at home tonight in the United Center. If you want to hear anything else about the Chicago Blackhawks, head on over to Chicago Blackhawks Central. We are looking for a host, so hit us up at shottownsports@gmail.com if you're interested in that. No news on the White Sox. A little bit of news on the Chicago Sky. Right now, they only have 4 players under contract. That's it. Haley Van Lith, Camila Cardoso, Angel Reese, and Maddie Westbeld are the only players on the roster. Courtney Vandersloot, Ariel Atkins, they're both free agents. They are not signed. Rebecca Allen, is also on a free agent now, so she could be on her way out. Rebecca Allen was solid last season, though. I'm not mad at her, but she's 32 years old, and she might be looking to go somewhere else, like and contend for a championship. Rachel Bannum, who the Chicago Sky traded for last season. They gave up Marina Mabry and a second round pick. They received Rachel Banda, Mariah Jefferson, and a 2025 first round pick, and a pick swap in 2026 with the Sun, which the Chicago Sky really needed because they traded away their own first round pick, which was going to be the number 2 overall pick of this upcoming draft. But they do get the 5th pick from the Sun this year. I do think they should bring back Rachel Bannum, though. I'm not mad at it. And then Kia Nurse, who was actually really, really good for the Chicago Sky last season. She put up pretty decent numbers. She had 14 games in double digit, and she played pretty well. So, and she played all 44 games, which is important. Which is important. So, listen, I think that they're going to bring back Kia Nurse and Rachel Bannum. They should, and maybe they'll bring back Rebecca Allen. She had a couple of good games for the Sky last year, but I think she might be trying to get up out of here and go play for a contender. But y'all already know what it is. Hayes and Steve-O hold it down over on Chicago Sky Central. I pop in and out. C-Dub does a lot of calls over there during the season. It's always fun with the Chicago Sky with the girls. Hopefully they can bounce back next season. We know it's going to always be buzzed around Angel Reese. So yeah, head on over to Chicago Sky Central. All right, so to close out this show this morning, this Monday, the Chicago Bears head to DC to take on the Washington Commanders, and for all intents and purposes, a rematch from last year where the Bears just completely fell apart and lost on the Hail Mary for the Washington Commanders and a fail Mary for Chicago Bears. Now, injury update. You got the Bears, Travis Homer is questionable. Washington, Chris Rodriguez is questionable. We know that Terry McLaurin is out for the Commanders. Noah Brown is out for the Commanders. And Debo Samuel is questionable, which would be big for the Chicago Bears to not have to face Debo. Now that would open it up for Christian McCaffrey's younger brother to go out there and open up on for the Chicago Bears. But hey, it is what it is. The Chicago Bears only have one player ruled out for this game, and that is but it's listen, I'm excited to see the Chicago Bears game tonight. And mainly, I want to see the passing game. Now, we know the rushing game needs help for the Chicago Bears. Right now, Caleb Williams is second on the team in rushing with 110 yards behind DeAndre Swift's 187. He's averaging 3.3 yards per carry. They're going to have to do something. They're going to have to do something in the rushing attack tonight. But the passing attack is going to be fine. I know that the Washington Commanders are not the best at defending the pass. So I feel like the Chicago Bears are going to go out there and expose them in that category. For example, opposing teams are 100 for 156 on passes, completions, and percentages, and they're at about 1,200 yards. They give up 8.2 yards per pass attempt. The Washington Commanders do. So, and they've only gotten 2 interceptions. So Chicago, but they do have 15 sacks now. Chicago Bears are going to have to make sure that they keep Caleb upright. Now their run defense is pretty decent. They only give up 117 yards per game, but they do give up 4 yards per carry. They've only given up 3 rushing touchdowns. But on the other end, the Commanders are, I believe, number 1 in the league in rushing. They got 156 yards per game and 133 rushing attempts. They average 6 yards per attempt, and they have 7 rushing touchdowns through 5 games. So the Chicago Bears are going to have to step up their rush defense, and that's asking a lot because this Bears team is just not good at stopping the run. It's just that simple. They're just not good at it. Right now, the Chicago Bears are giving up 6.2 yards per rush, 164 yards per game. Now, they haven't given up many touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns on the season through 4 games, but they're allowing teams to run all over them. So hopefully, after this bye week, they will come ready to go fresh with new mentality, with a new fervor towards stopping the run. We are the Chicago Bears, the monsters of the Midway. And right now, we're looking like the Chicago Teddy Bears of the Midway. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. And tonight, we already know that the Washington Commanders are going to try to come in there and come into their house and run all over the Chicago Bears and walk away with another victory. Hopefully, not in Hail Mary fashion. We already know the history. Um, Caleb Williams drafted #1, Jaden Daniels drafted over #2. And they use that as bulletin board material, especially from what I'm hearing over from Michael Wilbon over there on the Four Letter Network, um, saying that there's animosity that Jaden doesn't like Caleb Williams. And so what? Hopefully, Caleb Williams gives him more reasons not to like him later on tonight. We will be live over on Chicago Bears Central. You guys already know it's gonna be me, Steve-O, Hayes, C-Dub, and Bobby live Chicago Bears Central tonight for Monday Night Football. Make sure you guys are in attendance, liking, sharing, commenting, keeping us company. You already know y'all gonna be there. It is what it is. But yeah, that's it for the show tonight, man. Y'all know what to do. Head over to Chicago Bears Central for more news and updates on the Bears. Type in your favorite Chicago sports team, put the word Central behind it. You will find one of us, as well as Fighting Illini Central, NBA Central, which I will be getting back into when the regular season starts with my late night episodes, NFL Central, and the Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys, C-Dub, and Bobby. It's your boy, Big Kev, over here on Chi-Town Sports Central, your #1 spot for all things Chicago sports related, holding it down for the Chi-Town. We're going to holler at you guys next time. Peace.